Hello and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be teaching you, yes, you, how to Linux. In today's video I'm going to be teaching two main things. One, mostly just the basics and stuff. And two, how to install your Linux of choice. So first things first, the first thing you need to understand is, we got Linux right here, right? Now Linux is not, in fact, an operating system. Is kind of like the core part of an operating system, right? So you've got this right here, right? And then you've got the stuff around it that makes the actual operating system. Now, a couple examples of that would be like Debian, which I'll go ahead and draw a line off of here. And then I'll represent that with a circle, right? And then we got Arch, which I'll go ahead and do that as a square. And then you have, let's do Gentoo. I'll do that as, like, this weird shape, because Gentoo is Gentoo. Okay, so you kind of got that, like that. And then, off of all those, you have different, oh, okay. So then, out of all this, you have different, I should explain. So each of these are distributions, right? And then you have distributions that are based on each of these. So with Debian, you go down into, you have Ubuntu right here, which is very similar to Debian, but like slightly different, right? And that even has its own distributions based on it. Like what I'm using here, let's take Tuxedo OS. Or over here, let's do Mint. And then you have the same thing with Arch over here, and you have Manjaro, and then you have here, let's do SteamOS right here, like that. And then same with Gentoo, right? Let's go ahead and undo all that. And then now you've got that. So each of them are going to be better for kind of different things, but they kind of still do all kind of generally the same basic functions, right? Basically, there are like slight differences, but they're more similar than they are different. Now, with that out of the way, alright, so the type of distribution that I would suggest for the average person, any Debian-based distribution will probably be good for your average person. Debian is kind of the good all-around. Arch is kind of like if you want the absolute bleeding edge, but it kind of isn't always perfect. And a lot of times you might need to fix something yourself, and the average person just doesn't want to deal with that. Gentoo is kind of like that, but even more extreme, because you have to compile everything yourself, and that can kind of get kind of annoying, right? And then, of course, there's other ones than that. You have like Slackware, but that's kind of just Debian, but older, basically, from what I know about it. And even Android is another. I believe Android is based on Gentoo, though. It's in a similar manner, Chrome OS is also based on Gentoo. Correct me if I'm wrong, though, in the comments. Now that we've got that, what you're going to want to do is get a USB flash drive, kind of like this one. This is a 16 gigabyte, but you only need like 6 or 8 at a minimum. And it works basically the same way you would with Windows. You have to get an ISO, and then just flash it to this USB drive using whatever software you prefer to use for that. And now for the demonstration purposes, I'm going to be using Tuxedo OS for this, which is my personal favorite. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the website for that. Okay. We've got this right here. This is the website, tuxedocomputers.com. And, I'll probably put this link in the comments. Or not comments, description. My bad. I'll probably put this link in the description. And you're going to scroll all the way down to download Tuxedo OS. And it's going to bring you here. So we're going to want to look at, so this shows you all the files that make up the OS, but you're going to have two main ones you're going to want to look at. Tuxedo OS, and it's kind of a bunch of numbers, .iso, and then Tuxedo OS current.iso. It doesn't really matter which one you download between these two. The current is the most up-to-date, while The one with a bunch of numbers is kind of slightly behind. But we're going to go ahead and, just for this example, go ahead and download the current. Okay, now that we've got that downloading, now I'm assuming that you're going to be on Windows, so we're going to use a tool for this that is available on Windows, and it's going to be Balena Etcher. Let's go ahead and pull that up. Got that right here. Okay, so Balena Etcher, and then we're going to download this. It's going to be available for Mac, Windows, and Linux, so no matter what platform you're on, except for like what's it called, FreeBSD and stuff like that. It should be supported. Anyway, so now you're probably going to be using a Balena Etcher, and I will have a tutorial in the description on how to use that, but what I'm going to be using is my Tuxedo OS's built-in like ISO flashing tool. Like I said, if you need it, there's a tutorial in the description, but it's pretty simple on how to use it, because most of these programs are basically the same. Alright, now we've got our Linux installer right here, right? ISO flash to that. Now, a couple of things I'm going to go over real quick, just kind of explain some things. So there are two main things that just kind of don't really work with Linux, right? First things first, Adobe software. If you use Adobe software and you're not willing to try like other options, then this probably won't be a great option for you, right? That's mostly because Adobe is kind of actively hostile towards Linux, even when the community makes ways for their software to run on Linux. They actively put in extra effort to make it not work, right? And in a similar vein, you have games that use kernel-level anti-cheat. Specifically kernel level. That's because, and that's like got its own whole reasons and stuff. But if the game uses kernel-level anti-cheat, unless it has specifically been made to work on Linux, it just won't work. That, or you'll have a completely just... It'll be a pain in the ass to get to run. So if you play any games regularly that use kernel-level anti-cheat, might not be for you, right? So just keep that in mind. With Adobe stuff, there are plenty of options that you can use instead. There's one more thing I was going to mention, but I kind of forgot. So if it's important, I'll probably remember, but if it's not important, I won't. So we're all good anyway. Probably. Okay, yeah, I actually remembered what I was going to say real quick. So what I have here in this system is kind of just sitting off here. Here, let me pull up the specs real quick. One moment. Okay, so this is my specs I got right here, right? So we've got 2600X and a RX, it's a Vega 56, right? Now I just want to say, if you use an NVIDIA GPU, it's going to be a little bit more annoying to install like your proper drivers, but it's really not as bad as a lot of people try and make it out to be. It just, yeah, they kind of haven't really put any effort into like making their installer for the drivers, so it's kind of very bare bones, the installer is. But it's not too complicated or anything. You just kind of run it, you have to run it in a, what's it called? I think it's called a TTY, but anyway, I'll explain that later in a later video. But yeah, so that'll be in the next video. Anyway, now that we've got this, I'm gonna go ahead and swap to my phone camera to like record stuff. So be right back. All right, we're here. Let me turn the light on real quick. So this is the system we're gonna toss that on. And then for yeah, let me just move some stuff out of the way. I've been like rearranging my room, so there's kind of like a lot of stuff all over the place. But anyway, what we're gonna do is we're gonna install this right here on that right there, in this. So let me go ahead and put this in there real quick. Actually, I want to mention real quick, this step isn't actually necessary. You don't have to put in a new drive like this. You can just use your existing drive. I just don't want to have to reconfigure everything on my main system here. So that's why I'm doing this. So yeah, you probably don't have to do this. Or you could just toss in another drive if you have another M.2 slot, but I only have one. So that's why I'm doing this. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Alright, got the little SSD in there. By the way, in case you're wondering, that's just a random, like, 128 gigabyte SSD that I had, like, as just a spare. I'm probably going to use it in that, because there's a laptop that I thought was broken, but actually kind of works. The keyboard's kind of fucked up, but, it's functional. So I'm basically going to convert this into a desktop. That's going to be its own, like, video someday, maybe, possibly, I don't know. It might be. But, yeah, anyway, back to this. So, yeah, I'm just going to have to toss back in my GPU and everything, and then we'll be good to go. And I'll show you how to do the installation. It's pretty simple, but we'll go ahead and walk you through that process. I just want to mention, while it is better to have a, like, AMD or Intel GPU, that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad to have an NVIDIA GPU for Linux. It just, both Intel and AMD kind of actually put effort into their drivers to, like, make them work properly. Or it's not that the NVIDIA drivers don't work properly. That's kind of, it's more so kind of just a little annoying to install. You'll see in a separate, whenever I do that, because that's got a 1660 Ti mobile. It's somewhat, I'm actively trying not to go on a side tangent about that, but I am almost failing. Anyway, back to this. I'm going to put that all back together. Alright, now I've kind of got this as put together as it needs to be for this demonstration. We go ahead and turn the power supply on, and then...
Aren't you forgetting something? No!
Plug in the flash drive.
Damn, who raised you?
What we're going to do is, before turning on, we're going to plug in our flash drive into right there. Just like so. And then we're going to get ready. Make sure you know what your boot menu key is. Mine is going to be 11 because I have an MSI motherboard, but it might be different for you. Basically, if you know what brand your motherboard is, just look up that brand and then boot key, so MSI boot key or Asus boot key, or sorry, boot menu key. So like MSI boot menu key or Asus boot menu key, etc., etc. And then it'll tell you what key to press. But basically what you're going to want to do is, once you know what key it is, also, if you don't know what your motherboard is, you can just check in settings. So yeah, anyway, we're going to go ahead and turn it on, and then start spamming whatever key it is. For me, it's F11. And that should pull up. Wait for it. Wait for it. Entering boot menu, and wha-blam! There's your boot menu. Yours is probably gonna look different from what mine looks like, but that's fine. You're going to want to look for your flash drive. It should be like UEFI SCSI disk something something blah blah blah. It should look something like that, right? So instead of saying UEFI OS or something like that, it should say SCSI something, or yeah. And you're going to want to do that, and then it'll bring you to this. So we're going to do live mode and install. Just give that a second to do its thing. Oh, we got the second monitor now too. Now we're gonna play, which one is it gonna default to? Let's see. Place your bets in the comments now, which one it's gonna default to. Which one is it gonna choose for the default monitor? It's basically random, by the way. And we're about to find out. Oh, this one. Okay. So if you place your bets on this monitor right here, the left monitor, which is actually my real main monitor, then you won. I'll probably reply to your comment or something. I don't know. Anyway, so you're going to want to select your language, American English, and then select your region. I'll just leave that as is because it doesn't really matter for that. Select your layout. If you don't know what layout you want to use, just leave it as default. Alright, now we are in the live installer thing. So this is where you can like try out stuff. This is just going to be default configured stuff, so you can test out stuff here. You're still on the flash drive there, you haven't actually installed anything. This just gives you a chance to try everything out, see how you like it. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and install. Oh, it popped up over here. Okay, let me pull you over here. There we go. So you can do an encrypted installation or a standard installation. With encrypted, that basically just means you're going to need to type a password to access the drive that's going to be on at all. I'm just going to do a standard one, but if you want to have extra security, you can do encrypted. Open the installer. Bam, and then you can... gives you another chance to change the language if you selected the wrong one or something. But I'm going to just click next. Alright, so this is where you gotta select... So you're going to want to select the drive that you want to install to. Alright, I'm back to where we were at before. Except, so what I've decided to do is instead of using like this SSD right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just nuke my Windows partition, which would be this one right here. It is a hard drive, so it is going to be a little slow, but it should be good enough just for demonstrations purposes. By the way, what you saw right there is like shake to find your cursor. It just enlarges your cursor whenever you shake your cursor. You can disable that. Anyway, so yeah, what we're going to do is erase disk. That basically just makes it install fully to the drive. You can also install it alongside your Windows install, so you can like dual boot. So that's another option if you want to do that. I'll probably go over that in a different video, and how that all works. But anyway, so yeah, next we're gonna click next, and then I'll just enter this out with how to Linux. How to Linux. And we'll just leave that as default. Then I'll just type in my super secret secured password. There's 4 numbers. Anyway. So yeah, next we're going to click next, now that we've got our super secret secure password. Now, for this, you're just going to want to use Wayland unless it defaults to X11. You're only going to want to use X11 if it defaults to having that enabled by default. So yeah, Wayland is just kind of just better in every way. If you want, you can pause this for a second and read what it has to say. Either way, I'm going to click next. Then install. Install now. And bam, we've got it installing. Now just gonna wait for that. Oh hey, what's this? Is it perhaps a very subtle hint at what the next video will be about? This is almost done installing, by the way. No, ooh, wow. Crazy. Oh, it's gone now. Yeah, I don't know what happened to that. It's yeah, I don't know what that was all about. Not sure. Anyway, back to waiting for this install. Alright, we're now installed. Anyway, so you can either restart now by selecting that and then clicking done, or if you want to explore more, then you can just unselect that and then click done, and then you can explore around stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and restart. And then if you only have one drive in your system, it should automatically boot into it, but since I have two, I'm just going to go ahead and enter the boot menu so that I can specifically select it, just so I don't accidentally boot into my normal one. Just go ahead and enter the boot menu again, and then we've got UFIOS Kingston blah blah blah, then UFIOS SATA 1, and that should be the correct one since that's the one we selected while installing. Bam, there it is. I'm going to type in my super secret password. It shouldn't take too long. Hopefully. I haven't used the hard drive in a while. Actually, I literally just never used that Windows partition, so it doesn't even matter that we nuked it. I think I used it like once to play GTA Online, because that's one of the... Is like GTA, like the single player mode, works fine on Linux, it just, the online doesn't. Anyway, so we've loaded in. Is it actually like fully loaded yet? No, it's not. Yeah, just give it a little bit more time. Oh, there we go. You got our taskbar. Yeah, keep in mind this loading slowly is because it's on a hard drive. It's nothing to do with like the operating system itself. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and grab OBS real quick on this. Actually, I'll go ahead and show you how to get stuff. So first things first, you want to go into Discover here. There are two ways you can do this. You can like install it via like command line if you want, which that is technically faster, since you just have to type a bunch of stuff and then press enter and just do it all at once. Also, I'm sorry, that was very loud. Anyway, let's go ahead and check for updates before we do anything. Alright, let's go ahead and settings. With this, you can add in like backend and stuff, and Linux, like the vendor firmware stuff. I wouldn't really mess with this unless you like specifically want something like from here. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and go to back to home and type in OBS. Bam. And then we got OBS Studio right here. Then you got multiple sources up here, so you can install it from Flatpak or from Tuxedo Computers, Tuxedo Main, or which is basically just the operating system's like source for it. So you can, yeah, or you're just gonna do this one, the one it defaulted to, and then click install, and it's just as simple as that. You're just gonna want your password for like security reasons and stuff. Alright, there we go. Now we can go ahead and launch OBS. And blam, we've got OBS right here. Well, by the way, I just want to mention, since we are using the AMD GPU, we don't actually need to install any drivers, because all that's just built into the operating system. And it's not like Windows is, where you have like crappy drivers that are built into the operating system that kind of just work good enough. No, the actual just like real AMD GPU drivers are just built into all of this, so you don't actually need to install it, like manually. So that's very nice. Just a nice thing. Go ahead and apply those settings, and bam, we've got OBS. And then you move that over to this monitor. And then, now that we've done that, I'll go ahead and swap over to it. So yeah, let me go ahead and do that. Alright, here we are. We've got OBS right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through a couple things that you might want to see. So first things first, I'm going to click this right here, which is System Settings. So you got the quick settings. Don't mind this too much right here. So we got mouse and touchpad where you can adjust this. Got my mouse right here. I'm going to put that. Disable pointer acceleration. I'm just going to adjust things how I want them real quick. Alright, Alright, next we got keyboard stuff. You can go ahead and go through all this. You've got virtual keyboard. You can set custom shortcuts to do different things, as you would in anything else. You can configure a touchscreen if you have one. I don't, so I'm not going to mess with that. You get your multimedia stuff. You can set up game controllers, sound stuff, display and monitor. You can adjust your monitors and stuff. So, yep. You get all that. Accessibility. I'm going to go ahead and disable shade cursor. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and disable that. Connected devices. So yeah, Bluetooth. I do not have a Bluetooth adapter in my PC because I neither use Bluetooth or Wi-Fi at any point in time. So that's why that doesn't really do anything. See? Oh wait, yeah, okay, that's right. You gotta apply. Basically, you have to apply before continuing. So yeah. See, no Bluetooth adapters. Discs and cameras. You got all that. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and scroll down to appearance and style. So you got, of course, you can do wallpapers and stuff. Got colors and themes. Anyway, so I kind of got a little sidetracked here. Just like doing all this. But anyway, so yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and apply a global theme. This kind of deserves its own video, so I'm going to leave that to its own video. But anyway, there we go. So yeah, that's all the basic stuff. Alright, so I decided to go ahead and try it or go ahead and stop myself from getting into too much in this one video, because this is supposed to be a video about the basics and stuff. And it's kind of getting kind of late. Plus, I don't want to try and cram too much into this one video. But anyway, so that's going to be all for today. Wait, let me go ahead and swap over. Oh, holy sh... That's not supposed to happen. There we go. Okay, yeah. Okay, there we go. But anyway, so yeah. That's going to be all for today's video. I'll do more later. And by later, I mean eventually. And by eventually, I mean when I get to it. And have time for it. But in the video there was a hint as to what my next video will be, and that's kind of, yeah. Anyway, sorry, I'm failing at talking. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.